when Dr. Little joined us a couple of years ago, he brought a hashtag with him, Leadership Matters. And with our bold new strategic plan, it matters more than ever. We will not be able to empower each child to design the future unless we empower leaders with what they need to do this very complex work in our schools. And by leaders, I don't mean just principals and assistant principals and central services leaders, but our teacher leaders too. How do we empower them all to do this very complex work? It matters so much that it is one of our 2 strategic portfolios in the new strategic plan. We've done a lot of work already in this area in the past 2 years. We are in cohort 2 now of our Aspiring Principals Academy. We've done a lot of very intentional work with all of our assistant principals. Our principals, many of them are getting executive coaching. The work we've done with aspiring assistant principals in that pool. But we've spent the last year really thinking about how we reach all of our leaders and how we define what it means to be a leader in Lexington One. So we've spent the last year creating a leadership continuum and leadership standards for 4 key leadership positions. So tonight I want to share that with you. We're really taking a proactive approach at building the human capital we need and being ready to strategically recruit, select, develop, retain, and hopefully promote future-oriented instructional leaders. Get back one. So with the leadership continuum, we intend to provide equitable learning outcomes for all. So regardless of where you lead, which department you lead in, which school you lead in, you have an opportunity to grow and you understand the high expectations for leadership in Lexington One. We also hope to retain our high-performing employees by giving them these growth opportunities. We hope to create more transparency in terms of how you develop as a leader in Lexington One, and also with our hiring processes, how you go about advancing if you wish to do so, but also how you grow where you are if you don't wish to advance. We want staff to take ownership and really engage and commit to the leadership development process. So we thought a lot about what we wanted a continuum to look like in Lexington One and decided we didn't want it to look like kind of a roadmap because we wanted there to be multiple pathways to these 4 key leadership positions. So it's in kind of a circular and in quadrants for a reason because we want folks to see that you can grow in many ways, including staying where you are and continuing to grow. So in these 4 key roles, we have developed leadership standards that really say in Lexington One, what are the key skills, behaviors, and dispositions for leaders in these 4 key areas. So I could use those standards to grow in my current role or to look ahead to a role I aspire to and begin growth towards that role. For example, if I'm a teacher leader and want to be an assistant principal, I could go ahead and look at those assistant principal standards and start being really intentional about my growth towards those standards. We have identified kind of some key learnings that will be part of, regardless of the leadership development you're participating in, we want it to be very applicable. Of course, it's going to be based on the standards, but we also want it to be problem-based, experiential, and really be something that leaders can apply in their current or future context and not kind of a more sit-and-get approach to leadership development. I mentioned the standards. We have 10 dimensions that cross standards for those key positions. So regardless of whether you're a teacher leader or an assistant principal, you're going to have specific indicators in these 10 dimensions of leadership, which is allowing us to speak a common language across the district about what's important in terms of being a leader in Lexington One. So we developed these standards last year with a lot of input from our stakeholders. Each group began with kind of a small work group, but then went out to many other focus groups for feedback. So we had about 70 people work on the standards. They began with research-based competency models, so they didn't start from scratch. So they used a lot of research and said, but what does this mean in our context? What does this mean with our challenges in Lexington 1 and what our leaders need to be prepared to do. So with those research-based models, they created our standards. We don't think we're done. We think this year, as we understand the standards, we're also going to understand the revisions that may need to be made to them. And over time, we'll continue to make those revisions. So our work this year is to really understand the standards. We launched the Leadership Continuum and Standards at Leading as One with our central services leaders, assistant principals, and principals. Our Teacher Leadership Council will get the launch in October once we have all of our new members, and they will help us this year re-envision what teacher leadership means in Lexington 1. So that will be part of the work of that team this year to help us really understand how we do that more consistently across the district and what our teacher leaders need. We're also going to pilot the standards across all 4 positions. So we're going to pilot the standards in 4 to 6 schools and a couple of central services departments this spring to really understand what our leaders would need to fully implement the standards. We're also working to design a comprehensive induction program for new principals and assistant principals so that we have kind of a 3-year system of support in place once those leaders are hired. And also working hard this year to develop all of the professional learning resources that would be aligned to that are aligned to the leadership standards so that next year when we do a full implementation, we're prepared with those supports we need to do the growth that will be involved with meeting those standards. Do you have any questions for me?
No, it's great.